In today's video, we're continuing on with our series on battery crimes. And specifically for this video, we're going to talk about enhancement penalties for not just battery cases, but assault cases. So what kind of enhancements are there? If the assault or battery is on a law enforcement officer, a firefighter, emergency medical care provider, security officer, public transit employee, any of those are going to increase the punishment and penalties for any assault or battery cases. I'm Adam Rossen, criminal and DUI defense lawyer, owner and founder of the Rossen law firm. We help good people when bad things happen to them. So in the case of battery, and this is where we have the big jump, it goes from a first-degree misdemeanor to a third-degree felony. So any kind of simple battery, but on a police officer, firefighter, EMT, public transit employee, any of those, right? It could be a simple push, a punch, a shove. It could be an elbow. It could be slamming a door in their face or on them. We're talking now a max punishment of up to 5 years in prison and being charged with a felony. So it's very serious, and we see these battery on police officer cases especially, they're very common and we see them all the time. Now, if we have aggravated assault, that's normally a third-degree felony, right? Max punishment of 5 years. But if it's on one of this category, right, police officer, etc., then it jumps to a second-degree felony, and that means that the max punishment is 15 years in prison, and as important, there's a minimum mandatory prison sentence of 3 years. So that makes our case a lot harder to deal with, because minimum mandatory sentences are used by the prosecutor's office to really squeeze people and force them into taking pleas. It doesn't always force us into doing it, right? There's a lot of work that needs to be put into these cases, but it's definitely an unfair advantage that the prosecutors have against you. So you need to know and be mindful of that, what you're up against. In the case of an aggravated battery against a police officer, and a lot of times we'll see this if somebody tries to stab a police officer, or if somebody tries to even shoot at a police officer, or if you drive your car into a police car during a chase. We actually see a lot of these cases. It goes from a second degree to a first degree felony with a max sentence of 30 years in prison and a 5-year mandatory minimum prison sentence that needs to be dealt with, okay? So not only does the max sentence jump up, but the minimum mandatory, is there as well. And in a normal aggravated battery case, there is no minimum mandatory, but on a police officer, it's 5 years. Now, if there's a battery of a police officer and you use a firearm, so maybe you pistol whip a police officer, then we're talking a 3-year mandatory minimum for that charge, for battery of a police officer with a firearm. Now, all these mandatory minimums, what exactly do they mean? They mean, first of all, you serve what's called day for day. So what that means is, if it's a 5-year mandatory minimum and you get sentenced to that, you serve 5 years. There is no gain time. And for normal cases in Florida, you serve 85% of your sentence with what's called gain time, good behavior, all those, and you're entitled to early release. When there's a mandatory minimum, you're not entitled to gain time. You're not entitled to any type of early release. So 3 years is 3 years. 5 years is 5 years. Okay. And every enhancement charge in this statute, you must be adjudicated guilty. So what that means is, if you plead to one of these, or if you're found guilty at trial, you cannot get what we call in Florida a withhold of adjudication. You must become a convicted felon. And what that means is your case will never be able to be sealed or expunged, ever, if you plead as charged and you're adjudicated guilty. So even a first offense can make you a convicted felon. And most people don't realize that. So that's one of the main reasons why these enhancements can be deadly, for you in your case. If you have one of these charges, it's very important to have the right law firm, the right lawyers, the right legal team on your side. It's very important that you know and understand exactly what you're looking at and how this is different than just a regular aggravated assault case or a regular misdemeanor battery case. Because these are highly complicated, because usually they involve police officers as victims, and the prosecutors, what we found most of the time, they're there to stick up for law enforcement, especially when law enforcement is a victim. So if you have any questions about this, feel free, give us a call, 754-206-6200. You can find us at rossenlawfirm.com. We'd love to talk to you, love to find a way to help strategize and hopefully win your case.